الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وهو الأول وهو الآخر وهو الظاهر وهو الباطن لا إله إلا هو لا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I think this was supposed to be the beginning of the cycle of talks, inshallah, on gnosis and Irfan as understood within the context of the great alims of the Shia. I feel that it's probably premature to dive into Irfan, not because, inshallah, we are not in a position of being receptive to this type of knowledge and information, but Irfan is different from Tasawwuf, and one is encompassed in the other, but there are two different streams. The stream of Irfan, the stream of gnosis within Tashayyuh, is less to do with kashf or unveiling, although kashf is part of it, and more to do with intellect and illumination through using the rational faculties. This presupposes that we have trained our rational faculties to the point where we have gone beyond mere factual knowledge, mere knowledge of external phenomena, and are able to use our reason as one of the doorways into inner knowledge. Amongst the Ahl Shia, the path is different from that of the ones that we have chosen in our tariqas. There have been attempts in the past to bring them together. That is not to say that there are no Shia tariqas. But gnosis or Irfan presupposes that we have some grounding in a technical language and a vocabulary that may not be easily understood without some formal training. The same way that we use terms that have come, as it were, as second nature now to us in Tasawwuf, we have to learn also another set of words and terms and concepts before we can begin to discuss the great masters. I'm therefore in a bit of a quandary at this stage, because understanding Mullah Sadra, for example, who is the preeminent master of Irfan within Shia Islam, implies that we have to have some knowledge of philosophy, and implies that we have to have some knowledge particularly of the philosophy of Ibn Sina. It is not enough to say, and I think it was brought to me before, for example by Haider, that some of these words, some of these concepts that are used must be understood in their technical terms if they are to help us in reaching some form of understanding. I will therefore give you a gloss, as it were, over the parameters of gnosis within the Shia, and I will ask you later, inshallah, to see if you are able and desirous of continuing in this because it can be highly complex and very technical. The heart of Shia gnosis is not so much to do with knowledge of the Imam as we have been led to believe. It is to do with the nature of reality. What is haqq? The reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we can reach through illumination coming via our reason, not necessarily through unveiling. The system of inner knowledge in the way of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, in particular the way it has been developed in the last 400 years by the great masters such as Mullah Sadruddin Shirazi or Mir Fenderesky or his great interpreter Sayyid Hadi Sabzuwari, and ultimately it has found its 20th century figure in Imam Khomeini, Allah yarhamah. This is basically a way of knowledge that comes from discourse, that comes from elaboration, that comes from deep, I would say rational thinking. In some ways it has drawn from the insights and illuminations of tasawwuf, but not of all tasawwuf. It is really the tasawwuf of the great master Ibn Arabi. The system of Ibn Arabi, although it is an expression of his inner states and inner visions and insights, is also a system. It has certain coherence to it. It has certain order to it. It has a certain structure to it. It has a certain courtesy of entry to it. You cannot compare the system of Ibn Arabi, even though it is a kashfi system, even though it's a system based on unveiling, in the same way as you would compare it, for example, to the writings of another master, say Nifari. It is not a series of unconnected insights or visions or illuminations. It may appear that way, but it is not. It is really an attempt to create a structure of illumination whereby all these visions that he had, all these insights that he had, fall into an order, fall into a pattern, and fall into categories. It is par excellence a system of categorization of inner sight. Now, this might appear to be a contradiction in the sense that kashf or unveiling being a way in which we experience the proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be bound or classified. But it is bound, it is classified. And there are certain rules attached to it. And like any body of knowledge, in this case we're talking about the knowledge al-laduni, knowledge that is out of this temporal and spatial frame. This also has a certain order to it. So the link between Shia gnosis, Shia Irfan, and Tasawwuf doesn't come through the door of the tariqas. It doesn't come through the door of practice. It doesn't come through the door of dhikr. It doesn't come through the door of shuyukh. It does not come through the door of adepts and khalwas and khanaqas and zawiyas. It doesn't come through that door. It comes through the door of the structure of illumination. It comes to the door of the structure of unveiling and the structure and order and categories by which the person of insight has been able to see the stations, the hals, the maqams, the manazils, the way stations, the landing stages as it were, the halting points, the mawaqif of the true gnostic, the true arif, have certain orders. It is not higgledy-piggledy, it's not all over the place. It is not something that you just jump into. This is what a majdoob happens to a majdoob. A person who's drawn into the realm of the divine presence has no control over his actions. And he will not be able to describe to you what went on before, during, or after. To him, he is completely mesmerized by the divine presence. So to talk to him about order doesn't exist, doesn't mean anything to him. The exclamations of Bistami, for example, or Hallaj, have no order to them. They have no discipline to them, apparently. They have no category or structure. They are just overwhelming effulgences of a spirit that has been drawn in a magnetic, cosmic way to the divine presence. But Ibn Arabi is not like that. And that's a great appeal of Ibn Arabi to Ahl al-Shia. At least those of Ahl al-Shia who are desirous of reaching a station of proximity not through the tariqas, but through intellectual ratiocination and through ibadah and through worship and through acts of supererogatory deeds and acts of piety. Very few Arifs in the Shia belong to any tariqah. They do not even recognize the hierarchy of shuyukh and those that we know as being the necessary order in order for us to advance on the path. The need for a sheikh is completely irrelevant to the great arifs of Ahl al-Shia. They had teachers, but they did not have shuyukh who guided them on the path. Mullah Sadruddin Shirazi, for example, disappeared for nearly 15 years by himself in some small village. No sheikh, no nothing. He had great teachers. But when he came back, his insights were those of an ordered, structured mind that wants to impart that knowledge, impart that wisdom through the enlightened mind, through the mind that has been captured by the heart. So that is where Tasawwuf links up with Shia Irfan, with inner knowledge according to Ahl Shia. The other path to it, as I've discussed last time, is the whole body of what we call Islamic philosophy. In reality, it is the philosophy of Ibn Sina. And it's very hard to disentangle Shia Irfan from knowledge of philosophy. There's a great deal of philosophizing about it. There's a great deal that needs to be known by those who want to go along that path as to the nature of Islamic philosophy during and after the time of Ibn Sina, and the whole struggles that went on, the intellectual struggles that went on between, in particular, the notion of, as it relates to haqq, as it relates to reality, essence or existence. Those in Tasawwuf talk about the that as being the unbreachable frontier. The essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not known and cannot be known, and is the source of all being. It is being emanates as one of the manifestations of essence. This is the core of tasawwuf. The core of Shia Irfan is the denial of essence and the affirmation of existence. Now, this might seem a very hair-splitting argument, but it is a very vital argument. It is whether existence, haqq, is preeminent, or it's whether that is preeminent. In the Irfan, the inner knowledge that emanates from these great masters of Tashayyuh, the that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a mental concept. It's a concept that is within the mind. It has no objective existence. Existence is what matters. And existence, the nature of one of the defining characters of haqq, of reality, is existence, because existence cannot be defined. We can't say when something exists, the definition of existence in totality is not bound. This is the heart of the difference, as it were, between those of us, inshallah, on the path, and those of us who want to learn the inner knowledge of the Shia. And no matter what is said, there is a divide here, and it is, I would not like to bridge it simply for the sake of moving this thing forward, because it is really unbridgeable. That does not mean that those who chose the path of rational investigations leading to illumination are necessarily defeated, because illumination only comes through lutf and courtesy as a result of our inner orientation and a result of our struggles. But generally this is the case. Generally the Shia do not, even those who have an inner inclination, even those who want to seek the inner dimensions of the reality as they understand it, their approach to it is not through circles of dhikr. Their approach to it is not through organized structures of tariqas. Their approach to it is not through being under the hand of a master. There are Shia tariqas, but they are not within the system of Irfan as understood by Shia. So really with that in mind, I just want to make it clear that if those who want to continue on this and want to be more involved in being aware of the nature of the system of inner knowledge and awakening within Tashayyuh, then we have to be prepared to do some quite extensive reading, and in particular in philosophy. Now, I don't want to inflict that on you if you are not so inclined. But I'll move along with that in mind. What I have learned from my own experiences, from my own attempts, I shall try to share with you, because after all I do come from a background that is traditionally a Shia background, a traditional Ithna Ashari background, and I have chosen the way to inner knowledge through a modification of the tariqah system. I think all of us, inshallah, recognize that we are not in a type of rigid hierarchical system, and that is through the courtesy of our Shaykh, and also and above all through the lutf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all think that there is an element of connection between the two. I believe there is. I believe that the inner knowledge that comes to us from mujahada, through inner struggle, that we have discussed over the last 28 or 30 weeks. The summary of all of that is that this is a valid way of reaching a state of inner balance and equilibrium that allows us to at least say to ourselves with a degree of honesty and clarity that we are on a path that will lead, inshallah, to us dying to this world before our physical death is here. And if we do that, then this is what is the great victory. This is the fawz al-azim. And if it comes to us also via the rational investigations into the world of the ghaib, through illuminated hearts, not through rigid and arid intellectualism, then that is also valid. To me, the difference between essence and existence and choosing one rather than the other as being the fulcrum of reality does not change reality. Reality is the real. Allah is the haqq, and whether we approach Him through one door or the other door, the approach ultimately leads to the one. Even in the ways that we choose of improving our inner knowledge and awareness, if we approach that through the illuminated heart, and if that illuminated heart expresses itself through our intellectual seeking and yearning for certainty, then that's fine too. And I think those of us who come from a background which is very much traditional, or those of us who have chosen the path of Ahlul Bayt, even though we were not born into it, there should be no real obstacle or impediment to what we are doing as a result of traditional concerns or as a result of traditional biases and prejudices. The things that unite inner knowledge, and the reason why Ibn Arabi, to me, is this central figure in all of Islamic history after the Imams, particularly after Imam Ali alayhi salam, is that he gives your mind a way into the visionary world. We cannot, in reality, when you read Ibn Arabi, you are utilizing your intellect, you are utilizing your sight, you are utilizing your ability to understand and relate and advance and project concepts. Just by virtue of that fact, he appeals to your rational reasoning faculties. Ibn Arabi is of no use to somebody, and is of no interest to somebody who is in a state of permanent dhikr. He is of no use to somebody who is already has been drawn into the divine presence. He is no use to somebody who cannot read or write. He's not. Ibn Arabi is in many ways a post-modern figure. And one of the reasons, I think, why he's now being given much more attention than he was, let's say, 50 years ago, is because of that. Is that he allows the postmodern mind an entry into the realm of the unseen in ways that are striking. The other great figure that has been a pivotal influence, also myself, is Imam Ali alayhi salam. Because Nahj al-Balagha, which is our gateway into the knowledge of the Imam alayhi salam. We have no other way of knowing. We know his seerah, we know his biography, we know his actions, and we hear that the Prophet alayhi salam chose him as the repository of the secrets that he held. And what are these secrets? They're not numbers, and they're not secret bank accounts. The secrets are simply the reality, knowledge of reality, and how much the mind and the heart can absorb this knowledge of reality in its totality, in its existential form and in its essential form. It's not for everybody. It is for the select, and the Imam was the select of the select. What the Imam said is in Nahj al-Balagha, and Nahj al-Balagha is the other source book for any person who claims to be embarked on a path. That's why I cannot understand and will not understand how people can claim to be on the path, can claim to be in a tariqah, denying the monumental presence of the Imam. So, if you want to come back to what we started off, what is Shia Irfan? Traditionally, Shia Irfan is a philosophizing way towards illumination. What I think we're on is not Shia Irfan. What we're on is a journey of self-discovery. And our most important prop is the Quran al-Kareem. The second is the seerah and the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ. After that, the way into inner knowledge is through the system of Ibn Arabi and through the sayings of the Imam. That's for me. Those of us who are not inclined towards structure and towards order and towards the classification of things may find another way. But I really do not believe that it is possible for a person with a degree of interaction with the modern world, who has a degree of involvement and awareness, particularly in a Western surrounding, to claim that he is beyond reason and therefore he is in the same boat as our forefathers 200 or 300 years ago. I don't believe it's possible. There might be the exception, but the exception proves the rule. The rule is that postmodern man, including postmodern Muslims, need to have a way by which their certainty, which should come intuitively, which should come as a result of the fitrah, established and defended against the onslaughts of the modern world, against the forces of kufr which come in a variety of forms, including some wearing Muslim garb, forms that take on various degrees and of shaitani or satanic cunning, this form requires a degree of intellectualization. Otherwise, let's not pretend that we are at the same level as a villager out in the boondocks, or that we are in the same level in terms of our receptivity to outer stimuli, which are becoming more and more excessive to people 100 or 200 years ago. We're not. At least I'm not. And there has to be an essential grounding. An essential grounding comes from the example, the practices, the sayings of a person who's been there. A person who's been there and by lutf of Allah has returned to guide us. At the same time, it requires that we utilize our faculties, which are one of the ways that point to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every way points to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in our makeup, reason also points in that. And true tasawwuf is not the abandonment of reason. True tasawwuf is recognizing that reason is an element that leads you to illumination and knowledge. If we want to divide the two, we can. We can say that we will stay on the path, we'll stay on the tariqah, and will not be bothered by what the Shia masters have contributed to this. You can say that. That's fine. But you cannot say that and deny the importance and the criticality of Imam Ali's sayings and insights into the nature of reality. You cannot do that. It's not possible. And what is Shi'ism? Shi'ism is very simply the Islam of Imam Ali alayhi salam. What else is it? I don't know, man. What else is it? That is what the Shia is. The Shia are those who follow the way of the Imam after the disappearance of the Prophet. And the way of Imam Ali alayhi salam is the way of proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we carry with us all the time, then you are an Irfan. We don't have to dive into what Sayyid Hadi Sabzuwari said or what Mullah Sadra said. Because what they said is extremely complex and technical. And I repeat myself, I do not want to impose it on you because it might lead to people just switching off and finding it completely useless in terms of their inner journey. And the whole point of these exercises is to progress us, inshallah, towards that. I hope that the last, not few, but the last 30 odd talks have opened our eyes to the oneness of the purpose of the inner journey. It comes in a variety of shapes and forms and directions, and it was brought to a certain degree of fruition on one side by Imam Ghazali, on the other side by Ibn Arabi. But everything that we have looked at, that we have discussed in the past, was supposed to help us on our own journey, on our own path, inshallah. And we've come not to a crossroads, because after this, really there's very little can be said in terms of people who add to the masterworks of Tasawwuf, except this section of the Shia way towards inner knowledge. I hope I have not confused you I may have confused myself, but at this point I would like to just throw it open and see if you'd like to continue or would like to bifurcate, so that in the next set of talks we'll go towards discussing the 20th century manifestations, as it were, of neo-Sufism, if you want to call it that. And we'll just leave the Shia Irfan side to those few who may want to, or those many who may want to go through the background reading and background, which is necessary, I must say. Without it, it becomes an arid discussion. I'll be just lecturing you on the finer points of Ibn Sina and so on, and it's be of no use. Allah.
Allawi.
Bismillah.
Assalamu
Alaikum salam.
I was going to ask this question. Was it Ibn Arabi who had the conversation with Abu Salih when they uttered 3 words? Was it yes, yes, and then no?
No, with Ibn Rushd. This is the other philosopher, yes.
Okay. So I was going to ask, on that conversation, is the way of through the Shia school, the Irfan, is that a more select way? Can as many people travel that path? I mean, the way of Tasawwuf seems to be more open. It's not just left to the unveiling. I mean, there is a structure to it, that one doesn't have to necessarily concentrate on the structure in such a rigid or seemingly rigid way.
It's that. I'm sorry to say that Shia Irfan, if I want to be true and honest, and inshallah I'll always be with you and with others, Shia Irfan is a solitary affair. It is not an affair that involves community. It is not a communal action. It is not an action that involves a group of people. It's a solitary affair. And because what we are doing now is not really within the bounds of classical Shiism. By and large, it is not considered an appropriate form of organization. So, if you want to stay a Shi'i, Ithna Ashari, and you are drawn towards the inner way, there are no Shia tariqas left. They were basically decimated. I mean, there is a few, Na'matullahiya, but it's become a, I don't know, it's a shadow of itself, from itself. Your choice is either to go into a solitary, and by solitary I don't mean alone, but with 1 or 2 people who are like-minded, or you become a Shadli Haidari, which I think is a better way.
Because the more solitary one seems to lend itself to the fact that you should be a scholar or more scholastically inclined, and I know that I'm not that, so even though I would like to be a part of that, in all honesty,
it requires a degree of you see, it's a branch of formal training, and because it's a branch of formal training, and it is not really accepted. It's tolerated, but it's not accepted. There are a number of reasons why those who are drawn to it become isolated. The greatest interpreter of it in recent times is a person by the name of Sayyid Muhammad Hussain Tabai, who passed away about 15 years ago, and he wrote a monumental tafsir of the Quran. And if you read the tafsir of the Quran, his tafsir, parts of it are being translated into English now. In fact, the whole thing is being translated into English by Professor Mansour Cornell at some university, Duke University in America. His tafsir, which is called Al-Mizan, I'm sure you've heard of it before. There are 3 he has three ways of interpreting each of the ayahs. One way is, of course, through what he calls riwayas, that is the interpretations brought to these ayahs by the Imams alayhi salam. The other way is a philosophical way. So the inner knowledge of the scholarly Shia has become a branch of philosophy, as it were, and it is trapped there. It's trying to get out, but it's trapped there because it has no sense of community. There's no sense of involving people with it. There's no sense of there's no brotherhood or sisterhood associated with it. So it becomes an isolated and solitary affair, and scholarly, as you rightly said. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Have I answered you? Yes.
Imam Khomeini, I mean, obviously he was a scholar. There's no doubt he had all the scholarly training. But was his like inner knowledge of the Shia Irfani scholarly type, or was it?
No, it was that.
It was that. It was the Shia.
No, he in terms of the way that we see it, what he wrote and so on, is basically. I won't say it's a modification of traditional insights of the great alims into these things. His inner state, I believe, you see, one of the great outlets of those who are inclined in the inner way, in tashayyu', but are put in a corner because of the academic restrictions and because of the general negativism associated with it, is to go into poetry. Now, what's happening now amongst the scholarly arifs is to build up Maulana Rumi. Maulana Rumi in Iran has more than just poetic and insightful. There's also a way in which people can discuss tasawwuf, accept tasawwuf, without really getting into a clash or into a confrontation with the ulamas. And you can tell to some extent, a person's inner state by the way his poetry is constructed. And if you know, the Imam towards the end of his life constructed really some extremely interesting and beautiful, lyrical, what we call as khamriyat, wine poems, dealing with khamr and sharab and so on. Which means he was actually in a state of qurb. He was on a path, but the path is of his own. It is not the path that comes as a result of solidarity with others and mutual support under the direction of a master.
He had a master, Sheikh.
He had a master, but not a master in the sheikhly sense. He had a person who taught him openings, but did not guide him in his, did not direct him in the daily way that a sheikh would. It's happening that because they can't really, the rigid or arid ulamas cannot efface people like Maulana Rumi or Jami or the great poets of Iran who are all Sufis. They cannot efface them because they will be effacing their own national culture. So you have this enormous body of lyrical insights on the journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is also cultural. So if you are inclined in that direction, this is the way that most people go. They become basically literateurs. That's why there's something ethereal about the Sufis who are from that part of the world, who are also Ash'aris. There's something very cultural, I would say, about them. Because they don't have the bonds that come from being in a tariqah with others who are like-minded, who are also struggling. The mujahada is not there. Most cases.
I think people like Shaykh Fadhlalla do form a bridge to some extent. I know some of the Shia ulama poo-poo him to some extent, but at the end of the day, surely what brings somebody to Allah and to opening can be a mixture of both.
It can, yes, but you see, we have a word, we have a sense of community, inshallah. We have a certain relationship at the horizontal level with each other and with the Shaykh. We have a certain esprit, as it were, or elan, if you want to call it, if you want to use that word. This is possible because we are open about it. I mean, we're not a secret society, and because we don't really come under the constant attention and control of the outside. To some extent, we are living in a relatively open, let's say, non-threatening environment. This going public with this in a rigid and controlled way will become extremely difficult. Now, Shaykh Fadhlalla is obviously, he's not a bridge, he is himself. He embodies in himself, I believe, the reconciliation in that person. But that reconciliation is unique. So many people who have come to this path, not necessarily from a Shia background. I mean, some have come from non-religious backgrounds, some have come from Christian backgrounds, some have come from Sunni background, so on. So you can't say that this is the Irfani way of tasawwuf. It's not. It is an eclectic, modern way that suits us and suits him. So I believe that it's a happy compromise. It's not a compromise, it's a happy balance. But that balance is not replicable. I mean, a person who is within a certain tariqah, let's say, I don't know what, might find it too unusual what we're doing. Certainly a person from a Shia background might find it extremely unusual. I mean, I recall when we had that meeting, when was it, 2 years ago, in Dorset, do you remember? At Gaunt House? Mm-hmm. 4 people came who were invited and just ran away. And they were from traditional Shia. So, what do you say, Rahman? You skip over this episode, or you want me to inflict Ibn Sina on you?
Well, I mean, I think I don't believe what you're describing as what you define Shia, Irfan. If you intend by your lectures to actually teach it, then yes, it's not possible, because Shia Irfan is something that requires, first of all, a mastery of Arabic, a mastery of Persian, mastery of mantiq, and like you say, a fair degree of induction into philosophy of the So, if that is the objective of teaching it, then I agree, yes, it wouldn't be a good idea, because it would involve the type of commitment which I don't believe most people here don't have in order to study but I think it is possible to somehow précis or summarize as a description for people, so they will have an option at a later time or whenever they so wish to investigate further into the subject.
So you like a kind of summary, as it were, of the essentials.
Yeah, I think that's all that is possible. I mean, I think that's all that's possible, even with, if you like the tasawwufi strain of teaching, because even that is I don't think there's any less solitary in the final analysis of the Shia Irfan, because it requires you to spend quite a lot of time in your mujahada and in your night riddles and so on. I think those are the keys to, I think, both of them. They both emphasize those methods. So I think, in these sort of sessions, all we can hope to do is give people open windows for people and vistas for people to see and perhaps have the option, at least, to choose which one is more suited to their tastes and look.
See, one can open some of the classics of Tasawwuf. You can open, for example, Lum'a, or Saraj, or Qut al-Qulub, and you can immediately relate to them. You don't need any formal training. You just need to have the knowledge of the language that you're reading and an orientation. You need very little background. All you need is the taste and the inclination. You don't need to. It is mainly to do with the ethics of the way, the akhlaq, the courtesies, the adab, and certain definitions. And these definitions move. When we talk about, for example, sincerity, or forgiveness, or mercy, or anything to do with the divine names, they immediately resonate with the person. There is a receptor inside us that relates to the name, the healer, the al-shafi, or the guide, or the forgiver, or the clement, or the merciful. We can relate to that because it is to do with our instinctive recognition of what constitutes the required attributes of correct behavior and correct maqam, station. And that when we say that we're being sincere, we know that the ma'na, the meaning of sincerity, goes beyond that instinctively. It does not require that we dive into deep treatises. We do need to do that once you get to Ibn Arabi, because in Ibn Arabi everything is not what it seems to be, and it's such a complex structure that you need to have some roadmap to to find your way around. I would just like to, I would like to continue, because I think this might be perhaps an unwarranted truncation. But I just want to warn people that it will be in some ways less familiar than the exposition on Ibn Arabi. And I'll try to simplify it, I'll try to summarize it, and we had about 5 talks devoted to it. I'll try to do it inshallah in 3. Concentrate maybe 1 on Mullah Sadruddin Shirazi, 1 on Sayyid Hadi Sabzuwari, and perhaps the last one on Allama Tabatabai, or it's not very useful if some of the terms used are not immediately clear, or at least relatively clear, inshallah. So I'll start up inshallah next week, and I'll try to simplify it, and I will not try to teach you Irfan in the academic sense of the word. Not that I know it that well, but we'll try to highlight the things that can be of use to us, inshallah, and the things that we can draw upon to help us on our way. Alhamdulillah. I think that's okay if we can